You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks and Zach Bechtold. We hope you enjoy this week's show, and you can find out more about us by going online at beardedtheologians.com, where you can pick up a few t-shirts, listen to a few old episodes, and find ways that you can connect with us. Thank you for listening.
You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
So this week on the podcast, we're going to talk about baptism of the Lord Sunday, or just baptism of the Lord, or however we want to talk about it. We just said baptism of the Lord. We didn't land on anything, so we're just going to go with that today. So Zach, as you think about, as we prepare for baptism of the Lord Sunday, and as we think about Jesus's baptism, as we've thrusted Jesus in less than a week from a infant to a 30-year-old man, what comes to mind for you?
I really baptism of Jesus Sunday is one that I don't lean into the lectionary very heavily most of the year, and this is a Sunday that I always try to incorporate in at the beginning of the year. Last year it was weird because Epiphany and baptism of Jesus were the same Sunday, and so that made for some fun dynamics, but I always try to work in this Sunday, and sometimes I don't know that I've ever got to do a baptism. I just get to talk about baptism and do a remembrance service where we do some fun things with water. Whether it's I kind of have the baptismal bowl out there full with rocks in it, or just empty and have people come and put their hand in it. Or even doing kind of like Ash Wednesday, doing the sign of the cross with water as a remembrance. I've done all kinds of things, but I think it's really important at the beginning of the year to talk about our baptism, what that means, and our baptismal vows, and how we are each called to live that out in a variety of ways. This year I get to do a baptism. I've got a young kiddo that we're going to baptize on Sunday in this service, which that's super fun. So we're kind of building around that, and really going to lean into the support that we offer each other in our baptismal vows, the covenant that we make together as a church and as a community to journey with one another in our baptisms. And I think my favorite, couple of years ago, I titled the sermon "Tear the Heavens Open," and talking really focused on as Jesus comes up out of the water, the heavens tear open, and the dove descends upon, and hears the voice, "This is my son who I dearly love. I find happiness in him." And that stuck with me. That's always been a powerful visual image for me in any baptism, but especially the baptism of Jesus. I've always, I don't know, I found that really moving, and really not motivating is probably not the right word, in our own baptism of here's the compassion and the love and the grace that we all find from God in these moments, and our baptisms and how we join together in other people's baptisms remind us of that love and grace for all. And so, I don't know, I think it's an important Sunday. I really love to focus on it. What about you, Matt?
I'm not preaching this Sunday on it. I'm actually not preaching at all. I'm actually off this Sunday. But next week, I'm doing the covenant renewal, and I'm actually using Agreda Vega's book on Wesleyan covenant renewal service and tying all that in together. For me, every year when I think of baptism of the Lord, I think it's a great time to remember our baptism and be thankful for those that have been baptized, and talk about that. Talk about that. We live in a day and age where kids can actually now remember their baptism, or people can remember their baptism because there may be some video evidence of it, whereas not most of us. I don't. And I was even baptized as a 17-year-old. I mean, nobody had flip phones, and those didn't even have cameras, so that wasn't a thing.
Old.
So I think it sometimes when we use the idea of remember your baptism, we want to have that tangible, and we don't necessarily have that tangible. But there's something about touching the water that kind of brings us back to that. or when we see it happening in action. Like when, I don't know how you do it, but like I know I do a slow, long
Oh
pour, and
yeah.
I literally
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Way up here. As high
um,
as I can reach.
um, and so there's something powerful for that is helpful for people. I know a couple weeks ago, my Tuesday morning Bible study was doing they're in the study they were doing, one of the Adam Hamilton studies they were doing. He recommended doing a reaffirmation of your baptism service. And so I found the affirmation liturgy, and we did that together, and we walked through that, and I talked about every aspect of baptism, because some people know the aspects of it, like the importance of it within our denomination. We don't rebaptize, so that we remember, and that we take those vows seriously as clergy people, uh, and like why this is a one-time act, and it really is. Jesus only gets baptized once, even and I think sometimes we forget how important the one time is, even if you don't remember it. I think there's some
Hmm.
power to it, um, and it's a time to point to. Uh, but in regards to, um, like, it's great that you're getting to baptize somebody. I just don't. I think that more we talk about that, the more it becomes ingrained in who we are. But I think that we have lost track of that, because um, there are other expressions of faith that don't um, see it the way that we do as United Methodists. And I don't know. For me, it's an important thing of talking about why it's important to us, and
Hmm.
how it's a one-time thing. It's not something we do over and over again. Um, and that when God claims us, and I loved how I was taught this one time by a United Methodist pastor. Is that, like, once we put that on, once we put that jersey on, it never comes off. No matter how dirty we get it, no matter what happens to it, God is always there to clean it, to restore it, to renew it. But it's there always, and I've always loved that idea of it, because uh, I think sometimes there are other faith expressions that, like, no, like, you need to be baptized to be a part of us, or you need to be
Hmm.
baptized before you, so you don't go to hell. And like, I don't in any of
Yeah.
the liturgy, any of the scriptural references to Jesus in that, I don't see any of that in there. I see it as an act of renewal and true connection between humans and God. You think of in Mark when Jesus comes out of the water, and you, like, there's this moment that happens in that's like this whole, like, and I think of it like, I can't think of the name of the movie, but it's like it's Harry Potter, when like they freeze in time, but yet
Mm-hmm.
they're having this battle, and all you can, like, if you look on the out, like, if you pull back from the camera, it's just like they're frozen in time, but yet they're having this battle. It's kind of the same thing, that like I envision this moment of Jesus, like, coming out of the water and everything's fine.
Hmm.
But in that brief moment of him coming out and everything, that's when the dust descends, like, and all that happens in spiritual time. And it's just a holy moment. And I don't know about you, but I have felt those moments in those
Yeah.
kind of things and actions, and it's just powerful. Like, this is a powerful Sunday if utilized well and taught the theological aspects of our understanding of baptism. And if you're a United Methodist, or if you're even curious, By Water and the Spirit is our official document that talks about the United Methodist understanding of baptism. And you can find that free like, don't buy it from Cokesbury. Go find it. It's literally free.
Right.
Uh,
Well, and you're right. We don't talk about the sacramental nature of baptism very often. We do for communion, right? Because we have scheduled communions. We do them at least 12 times a year. And if you're fortunate enough to do them every week or every other week, you get that a bunch. But baptisms anymore are not few and far between, but certainly not as regular as other things that we do, and we don't talk about the sacramental nature of it in the in between. We kind of often, at least you and I, we hit it at the beginning of the year on this Sunday and talk deeply about it, and then it's probably another 52 weeks before we do it again, unless there's a baptism. Um, and so, yeah, I think we need to do a better job of talking about that and remembering our baptism and doing it in a variety of ways. Whether it's these types of services, whether it's just talking about it in our service, or just in conversations with folks in our church and small groups and in a variety of ways. So I mean, I know you run across it too. Anytime we talk about baptism, there's always somebody who's been a lifelong Methodist or been a Methodist for a long time who comes out and be like, I'd really love to get rebaptized. And it's like, we don't do that. I appreciate the sentiment, but it, this is what we do, and this is why we do it. And those conversations are important. But what do we? The second question of that is, what do we do with that enthusiasm? What do we do with that moment when somebody's so pumped up and excited about God's love and grace in such a way that they want to get rebaptized? How do we take that energy and help them move forward without dashing it and just saying, yeah, we don't do that, right?
I've always found that when I've been asked that, and I've been asked that a lot,
A lot.
is I think I get asked that more than I do the initial question.
100%. I get asked to rebaptize people more than I do just to baptize people. For
I
sure.
think, well, it's a little different out here, but I definitely know that, like, back in Oklahoma, that was definitely something I dealt with a lot. But in Colorado, it's more the other. But I think one of the things that the thing is to explain our theological understanding of it is huge, and to understand, like, to and as we were talking, I was thinking, maybe once a quarter we bring that up
Sure.
and just remind people why we, what our baptismal vows are. Like, how often do you look at those? Like, how often do you remind the congregation of those?
Yeah.
And how often do we? I mean, not that we make it such a thing that it becomes another ritual that becomes bogged down and process. But what if we actually brought that up every so often, whether it's in service or in a newsletter article or even in posts of things. I think that that's a good thing to think about um, as we venture on why this is important. And this is just one of those good Sundays of the church that kicks off a new year. There's so many things you can do with it, and there's so many different ways that you can remember your baptism. I've given more pebble away than I can count.
Right.
So,
But
I think there's ways to make it special is and meaningful. Does
absolutely
allow the opportunity to teach it become more.
I'm not a Catholic priest. I've never been a Catholic. And but something that they do well is remembering their baptism. They often have holy water at the entrance of the sanctuary, and that's all it is. To dip a finger in, to dip your whatever, to remember your baptism and to renew that covenant as you enter into Mass.
You know what other church does it well? And who built one into, like, right as you're walking into their sanctuary, their massive sanctuary? Our friend, not friend, Adam Hamilton's church. They built this beautiful baptismal font that you can touch the water as you're walking in. It's
right,
powerful
and
moment.
why not do more things like that? Have it accessible. Yeah. I mean, here in Bozeman, we do prayer candles and things like that. We have some stations set up. Why not for baptism? We do communion on a regular basis. I agree. I think finding a way to work baptism in a meaningful way, not so it becomes ritualistic and kind of rote, but how do we find meaningful ways to acknowledge our baptisms more than just when we're doing a baptism or preaching about it? How do we just find that subtle way to do it often and meaningful?
Well, for those that are listening, if you have done it a different way or want to share your way of doing it, feel free to in the comments or wherever you're listening to the video. We'll try to catch it. Or just I think that that's a great way to have that conversation. I know, like I said, there are many different ways it's been done. I know during COVID, the joke was using a squirt gun at a great distance. I mean, I definitely got those memes. I remember that. But I know there's some meaningful, sacred ways that you can do it, which will be powerful, and that's really what you do. For our listeners, thank you for listening. As we begin year 9, is this 9?
Year 9.
Year 9. Yeah, in about a week.
Next week, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, next week could be about year 9. want to thank our listeners for listening, and just continue to share our podcast and don't forget to ask questions. So for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
And Zach Bechtold, thanks for checking us out.
I want you to subscribe and like this video and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.